Hello, everybody. Sorry for the few minutes of delay. It was a busy waiting room for people to come into the webinar this morning. So we just wanted to give it a moment or two so that everyone could come and participate in this engaging conversation, this hot topic. Thrilled to have everyone here today to join us for one of our first Haloo Illuminating webinar series. This is Claude for Legal. Can LLMs really clear trademarks? Here, our team Haloo has the answers. My name is Maren Stern-Kabista. I'm the VP of Sales here at Haloo and am delighted to be joined by the brains behind the Haloo machine. Today, we're very lucky to have our founder and CEO, Julie McDonald, with us, as well as Nastran Babanajad, whose name I was practicing before we joined today, who is our chief AI scientist, who are going to walk us all through these latest advancements in the field. I'm sure many of you were at INTA this past month with myself, and you could not go minutes without hearing AI as the conversation of note. So we all came home to this large release to Claude for Legal, and we want to unpack that with you. So to tell you a little bit about Julie before I pass it over, Julie is a visionary entrepreneur and IP expert with a career spanning over 15 years in trademark law. Before founding Haloo, she grew her own boutique IP practice here into a top 12 filing firm here in Canada, competing with tier ones. Her legal background and her tech savvy approach is what allowed her to do this and is what allowing her to revolutionize the trademark industry today. And we also have Nastran Babanajad. Nastran is a trailblazer in AI with a PhD in computer science and previous stints at the postdoctoral research fellow at York University, a senior data scientist, researcher for the Brain Alliance at the Globe and Mail, and a senior AI R&D scientist at Dapasoft. Now she has joined us in our mission to champion Haloo's vision of legal protection for all and innovate with AI. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Julie, who will be walking us through what we've discovered in our recent testing with Claude.
Great. I'm sorry I'm off camera to everybody. I meant to be on camera and ended up with a bit of a personal emergency there, and I have to be off camera for the session, but it will be a good session. I just want to acknowledge Gabriel in the chat, who's our friends at Ropes and Gray are having trouble connecting. So I just want Madison to notice, and maybe she can help. So Gabriel, if it gets resolved, let us know. If not, I just wanted to call it out so that Madison can help. And also, if anybody else is having trouble connecting, please put it in the chat. Okay, so we are very excited about this topic because Claude unleashes so much of what is really deep R&D for Haloo, so much of Haloo's capabilities and deep sort of data integrity and the computational brain that we built over years with senior trademark examiners, all of that gets surfaced and very much highlighted when Haloo is combined in a bit of a hybrid way with Claude. So that's what we have been very excited about over the last couple of weeks since Claude for Legal launched the new trademark clearance skill, which is the topic of this webinar. But to understand it, we have to get into a lot of very deep technical explanation that can seem long and boring if it's a talking head. So we actually created two videos, and we're going to play two videos back to back. It's about 15 minutes total, but it's well worth your time. We'll do in the second video a walkthrough of the actual Claude experience when you haven't gotten the Haloo brain, or just how Claude works on its own out of the box today. So different ways of prompting it, how it looks in the outcome, what data sources it retrieves, etc. And then Nastran and I will show you some comparisons of what you experienced in that video showing what Claude does out of the box with how we've integrated Claude to release something in Haloo that feels ultimately very exciting for an instant search. We'll also show you how that instant search compares to a legacy provider search, and then we'll take questions. So that's the plan. Marin, you can kick off the video and we'll go from there.
When Anthropic's initial legal plugin launched in February, legal professionals quickly became the most engaged users on the entire platform, generating more than 3 times the usage of any other knowledge work category. Because of that surge in demand, Anthropic's May 2026 expansion wasn't just about building generic AI for lawyers. Instead, Claude for Legal was structured around 12 practice areas, where the highest value enterprise legal workflows actually exist, mirroring how corporate legal departments and large law firms are organized in the real world. Naturally, mission-critical workflows like trademark clearance were part of the release. It's a massive category because virtually every business name, product name, logo, slogan, sound, like Netflix's iconic "ta-dum," or even something as unusual as the scent of crayons, can require trademark clearance and availability analysis. And in practice, a single successful trademark filing is often preceded by hundreds of searches, revisions, and rejected naming ideas before a company ultimately chooses and files a mark. The category is also growing rapidly alongside AI itself. AI is accelerating new business formation, digital product launches, creator brands, influencer businesses, and global online commerce. Every new app, product, creator channel, AI tool, podcast, virtual brand, or digital experience now needs names, logos, and brand protection. At the same time, AI is creating entirely new trademark and identity risks, including voice cloning, synthetic advertising, deepfakes, and likeness misuse, pushing celebrities and brands like Taylor Swift, Kim Kardashian, and Matthew McConaughey to protect names, catchphrases, likenesses, and brand identity more aggressively in the AI era. Modern AI models like Claude are genuinely powerful. They instantly understand that something like "just do it later" is a conceptual play on Nike's "just do it," or that a name like Nightlight for lamps is likely descriptive rather than inherently distinctive. They can draft legal analysis that sounds like it came from a senior partner at a major law firm. But here's the catch. When it comes to actually clearing a brand new trademark, off-the-shelf AI completely falls apart. Why? Because trademark clearance is not primarily a reasoning problem. It's a massive infrastructure, retrieval, and data problem. Think about it this way. If Spotify or Netflix recommends the wrong song or movie, it's no big deal. Mostly right works perfectly fine for low-stakes recommendation systems. But trademark clearance requires the kind of reliability expected from aviation systems or self-driving cars. The standard cannot be mostly right. You cannot miss the critical thing. One hallucinated result or one missed conflict can literally cost a company millions of dollars in rebranding costs, litigation, lost goodwill, packaging, marketing, and destroyed product launches. Imagine having the smartest trademark lawyer in the world sitting beside you. They have a photographic memory of every trademark case ever decided and perfectly understand the likelihood of confusion test, how consumers interpret names, sounds, meanings, goods and services overlap, and trademark risk. Now imagine asking them to clear a mark after cutting off their Wi-Fi and taking away access to every trademark registry on Earth. Even the best lawyer cannot analyze records they literally cannot see. That is Claude's exact problem out of the box. It can reason brilliantly, but it has no live connection to global trademark registries and no infrastructure capable of intelligently retrieving the legally relevant records in the first place. So some people assume the solution is simple. Just connect raw government trademark APIs directly into the AI. But architecturally, this breaks down very quickly at scale. A global trademark clearance search may involve evaluating on the order of hundreds of millions of trademark records across registries worldwide. Those records contain owner information, filing dates, legal status data, goods and services descriptions, classifications, translations, and related metadata. Large language models process information as tokens, roughly corresponding to words or fragments of words. Even using a conservative estimate of 100 tokens per trademark record, 200 million records would represent roughly 20 trillion tokens of raw input data. At current frontier model pricing, attempting to process anything close to that volume directly through a large model would be prohibitively expensive for a single comprehensive global search. And even if compute costs decline significantly, throughput constraints would still remain. Large language models process tokens at finite speeds. At a hypothetical throughput of 100,000 tokens per second, processing tens of trillions of tokens directly would still take an impractically long amount of time for a real-world legal workflow. No law firm or enterprise legal department can wait months or years to clear a brand name. This is why simply connecting raw trademark data directly into a large language model is not a practical architecture for enterprise trademark clearance. The challenge is not only model intelligence, it is the retrieval, filtering, ranking, and computational infrastructure required to identify the small subset of legally relevant records before any reasoning model can meaningfully analyze them. And even if the compute problem disappeared entirely, the AI would still be operating on deeply fragmented and unreliable data. Global trademark data is extraordinarily difficult to obtain, normalize, and maintain. Every country structures records differently. Registries update at different speeds. Some registries have modern APIs. Others have outdated digital infrastructure or no usable infrastructure at all, sometimes requiring manual extraction and reconciliation just to make the data machine readable. For decades, the industry has been controlled by a small number of commercial providers like Clarivate, CoreSearch, and Lighthouse IP, which until recently was effectively the only large-scale provider licensing trademark data infrastructure to search companies. A monopoly, really. Because there was so little competition for so long, many of the underlying retrieval systems were built decades ago. The data quality issues became normalized. Missing registry records, inactive marks showing as active, inconsistent status updates, delayed filings, and jurisdictions where new records can take months to appear in commercial systems. A human paralegal can at least apply skepticism to those gaps. AI cannot. An AI system acting on incomplete or dirty data will confidently generate a beautifully written, highly professional, and completely wrong legal report. That is why simply layering a large language model into a law firm workflow is not enough. Before implementing a Claude plugin, you first need to ingest global trademark registries, clean inconsistent government data, build examiner-grade retrieval systems, and reduce hundreds of millions of trademark records down to the tiny handful of actual legal risks before a large model like Claude ever sees a single word. That is what Haloo spent years building. Haloo's retrieval infrastructure was trained and refined alongside senior trademark examiners across multiple jurisdictions for more than 2.5 years. The challenge was never just finding similar words. The challenge was teaching the system to think the way trademark examiners think, understanding phonetic similarity, conceptual similarity, coordinated classes, goods and services overlap, transliterations, consumer confusion standards, and jurisdiction-specific legal logic, while filtering out enormous amounts of irrelevant noise. This system was also continuously refined through feedback loops around difficult edge cases, the nuanced marks that humans themselves often debate, allowing the retrieval engine to improve over time as new fact patterns and examiner behaviors emerged. The result is a retrieval engine capable of compressing roughly 200 million global trademark records down to approximately 500 highly relevant legal risks before the reasoning layer even begins. And in many cases, that retrieval performs more consistently than traditional human analyst workflows. Human-prepared search reports from legacy providers still depend heavily on offshore analyst teams manually constructing Boolean searches under quotas, time pressure, fatigue, and varying experience levels. One analyst may have deep expertise. Another may have only been on the job for a few days. Haloo's retrieval infrastructure operates deterministically and consistently at scale, often surfacing legally relevant conflicts traditional human-prepared reports miss entirely. But even the best retrieval system is useless if the underlying data is flawed. That is why Pinakel AI was built as a separate, dedicated data company, focused on ingesting, validating, cleaning, and structuring trademark data directly from primary government registries in near real time, instead of relying entirely on delayed commercial data feeds. Only after all of that infrastructure exists do you finally hand those specific records into a specialized AI reasoning layer to generate the final legal analysis. When you combine high-fidelity data, examiner-grade retrieval infrastructure, and modern AI reasoning, you do not simply get a confident answer wrapped in disclaimers about reliability. You get an AI system capable of producing genuinely defensible legal work that can meet the mission-critical demands of enterprise legal departments and large law firms.
Okay, great. So we're going to move from that, which is the high-level technical, why does Claude perform the way that you're going to see it perform in the next video? So that really good grounding background and context. And then we'll go from this video to actually show you output of Claude layered into the computational brain that Haloo built, as well as that exceptionally high fidelity trademark data layer.
Let's actually put Claude to work on a real trademark clearance. We're going to use the mark breadwinner for restaurant services in Class 43 in the United States. And we're going to run it two different ways so you can see exactly what you get and what you don't. To use Claude for IP legal work, you need to be inside Cowork. That's Anthropic's desktop tool for task automation. And you need the IP legal plugin enabled in your session. Getting that plugin set up depends on how your cloud account was originally configured. If you're an attorney and your IT department set up your account for legal use, you'll find it listed under the Customize tab on the left panel. Click the plus button, browse plugins, and add it from there. If you don't see it, you may need to upload the plugin repository directly. That's a step for someone with an IT background, and it's outside the scope of today's demo. Once your session is open with the IP legal plugin active, you're ready to run. The interface opens to a command line prompt. The first command you'll type is /clearance, just like that, and hit enter. Claude will ask how you'd like to proceed. You have two options: a cold start, which walks you through a 2-minute profile configuration, covering things like your risk tolerance and the types of clients you serve, or a provisional run, which skips straight to the search using sensible defaults. For a test run, go with provisional. It's faster, and you can always configure your profile later. So, provisional run, enter. Now Claude asks for your proposed mark. We're entering breadwinner as a compound word, no space. It confirms the spelling, then asks whether this is a word mark, a logo, or both. For today's demo, it's a word mark. Next, goods and services. We're entering restaurant services, Class 43, United States. There are optional fields: how the mark will appear in use, logo upload, and we're leaving those blank for this run. But notice this line: no database search was run. What Claude has done here is an intrinsic bar review. That means it's applied the statutory registrability rules and a structured factor analysis to the mark itself, without connecting to any trademark records. It's flagging that breadwinner could be considered descriptive or deceptively misdescriptive if the applicant doesn't actually sell bread, which is a real legal consideration. But it has not searched USPTO, it has not searched common law sources, and it can't tell you anything about who else is using this mark in the marketplace. You'll also notice it's attempting to connect to something called Solve Intelligence. That's actually a patent search tool, not a trademark database. So right out of the gate, it's reaching for the wrong data source. This is something to be aware of with general purpose AI. It will try to answer your question even when it's reaching into the wrong place to do it. The intake form method on its own is not a trademark clearance search. It's a registrability flags review, a useful starting point, but not something you can rely on. Now let's try a different approach. Instead of using the intake form, we're going to use the /clearance command and pass all the search parameters directly in a prompt. Here's what that looks like. We're asking Claude to run a comprehensive trademark clearance search in the United States for the mark breadwinner, including USPTO federal records for use in connection with restaurant services in International Class 43. You can see Claude is doing more here. It's acknowledged that it has web access and that USPTO records are publicly searchable online. So it's using a web-based search interface to try to retrieve results. This is meaningfully different from the intake form run, but watch what it does next. It attempts to connect to Solve Intelligence, patent search, not relevant, and to Court Listener, which is legal case precedent. Neither of those is a trademark records database, and Claude isn't currently authenticated to either of them anyway. So it's trying to cover all its bases, and in doing so, it's querying the wrong sources for the question we actually asked. This is a critical point. These large models are designed to attempt an answer. They will reason confidently, and they will return results, but the results may draw from sources that aren't appropriate for the task. That's not a failure of reasoning. The reasoning layer in these models is genuinely impressive, but the data sourcing is unpredictable, and in trademark clearance, unpredictable sourcing is a liability. The results are in. The risk rating has escalated to red, stop, in Haloo terms. But let's look at what it actually searched. Claude ran what it calls a sweep through web-indexed sources. The sources it hit include Trademarkia, a USPTO landing page, Yelp, TripAdvisor, Better Business Bureau, and press coverage. It's identified 3 potential conflicts, and it's even surfaced a common law reference. But here's what it also tells you, right in the output. This is not a substitute for a test query, and you need TSDR confirmation before you can rely on these results. Claude is telling you, in plain language, that it knows this isn't a reliable search. The sources it's quoting, Trademarkia, Justia, trade publications, newspapers, are indexing a fraction of the USPTO record. And because of token limitations, Claude can only process and return a portion of even those results. The context window constrains what goes in, and the output window constrains what comes back. At scale, running clearance across a portfolio, or working through a list of proposed marks, those constraints compound quickly. So what have we actually seen here? Claude out of the box is a capable reasoning engine. It can identify registrability issues, apply statutory frameworks, and pull together a surface-level picture of common law usage from publicly indexed sources. For a quick gut check, or as a supplement to a structured common law review, there's something here. But it is not a trademark clearance. It doesn't have authenticated access to the USPTO records. It will reach for patent databases and legal precedent when you ask for trademark data. It is bounded by token limits on both input and output, and it will give you a confident answer whether the underlying data is complete or not. Now let's get back to the live session where we're going to show you what it looks like when Claude is actually connected to Haloo, where the search infrastructure is deterministic, the data is verified, and the results are something you can stake a professional opinion on.
All right. So any sort of questions that you have on this initial part of the webinar, please drop it in chat and we'll try and address them. And then what I'm going to do is share a quick couple of slides and we'll actually show you results. So what we want to understand is that a trademark search like Claude and any trademark search needs what we call an intelligence layer. And I think we've done a good job at explaining that up until now. So now we want to get into kind of a comparison case study. We're going to take the same breadwinner example from that last video, and we're going to show you what Haloo plus Claude looks like versus a legacy human search. And this is the high level overview of what you're going to experience when we share screen on the two searches back to back. You'll see in that legacy workflow a report that ends up being around 621 pages. There are 123 USPTO citations in it. It's got a really broad retrieval volume. If you're a lawyer reviewing it, you're going to have to go through the whole report and manually kind of retrieve the handful of references that you want to bring forward to your client, and then you're going to have to re-rank them. The biggest thing to understand is that the key conflicts, the ones that we really want to make sure to report, are actually quite buried in the legacy report. Whereas when you combine Haloo's computational retrieval and ranking engine with the Claude reasoning layer, which is also hybrid with Haloo's analyze and rank reasoning layer, that the actual conflicts are immediately surfaced at the top. So you'll see that. So your review time and all of this manual cut and paste or pulling out and then re-reporting is potentially unnecessary. So we don't just do a lexical kind of similarity. It's actually applying the likelihood of confusion analysis to the report. So here's what you get when you combine Haloo's computational brain with Claude. It's really about a prioritization of legal risk. So we talked about better ranking already and the faster review. There's also something that's really interesting that Claude is extremely good at, which is a reasoning on every single conflict that Claude sees. So it applies the likelihood of confusion test to the data that Haloo serves to it. And then it gives a reason for pulling out a specific conflict and ranking it where it does. We'll show you that in the Haloo report, but it's one of the things that I'm personally most excited about as a practitioner. We all want to explain at a conflict level why we've included certain hits in a report to a client, and it does that really super well. One of the first times I tested it, there was a hit that I thought was not relevant at all. On the surface of the information of this hit, I would not have included it to report to a client. And then when I read the reasoning that Claude had, I realized I would have been wrong not to report it. So this is when AI can be really assistive to make sure that we're not just doing, you know, a typical full search. We're actually enhancing that full search with an AI reasoning brain that exists with our own reasoning brain to catch what we might not be seeing. Again, we already talked about this, but registrability issues are flagged. It also gives a really cool DuPont factor explanation, which we'll show you. With Haloo, you're going to be able to generate an opinion letter immediately off of this report. In general, you'll see it's better ranking, so more accurately identifies the overall likelihood of confusion risk. When you can actually see what the top hits are, you can accurately say this is high, medium, or low risk. It's also got full USPTO record integration, and that is litigation quality evidence. In any other system, you're pulling from a flawed data feed, like we explained in the first video. In Haloo, I always insisted that if we're going to put full records, we should put the actual time-stamped full records directly from the USPTO website. So that's what you'll see in the Haloo report as well. And then in many testing that we've done, we've caught conflicts that the human analysts just missed in the data. So even though those reports will have 120 plus USPTO records, they will consistently miss sometimes a dozen or more legally relevant conflicts, and the Haloo computational brain will catch them. So what does this mean for you? It means that you don't necessarily abandon your legacy search today, but I think we're shifting into a new era of search enabled by what's really good about these large models and what's really good about advanced deep tech AI, like what Haloo spent years building. The combination of those two big advances in technology is creating a new era of trademark search. I think we're in a paradigm shift, and I understand that a lot of you are feeling nervous about abandoning the human legacy search. But I think you'll find once you get a feel for, Haloo plus Claude, you'll have much more confidence reporting on a full search if you've got Haloo as that additive layer. So that's what we'll get in to show you. So this is our legacy provider report on Breadwinner. And then we'll show you the Haloo one right at the end. So this is very much a traditional report. If you can go up to the first hits. So let's just see these first hits on this. And do you want to walk us through, Nasran? And I'll line up the next bit, but you'll see it's the very traditional report. So there's no reasoning with each of these hits at all. I think everyone's generally familiar with them. When you click on them to see the full record, it's from a data feed. It's not the USPTO full record. And then several of them are let me review if I recall, several of them are not active status. So let's just go into the actual hits. Yeah.
So some of them are out of class. The status, as you can see, are canceled in here. So basically the way that it was grouped is based on the analysis of the similarity of words, not necessarily the likelihood of confusion considered, because you see that the first hit is that out of class just because it's a exact match is included, which we consider not to include it in the final report. So what we include using the Claude is that every problematic or high risk hits that needs to come out from the first layer of surface from Haloo, it comes to the final report that Julie is going to show you in a second, which is worth further review. So those will be included. If you're interested to include stuff that are completely out of class, not in the coordinated either, you still are able to include it in the final report using the re-rank of the results from Haloo platform.
Okay, great. Let me switch over and I'll share the Haloo report. And then I see that we've got a lot of questions. Okay, can everyone see? Great.
Yes.
All right. We've got a lot of Haloo users on the call, so you'll be familiar with the Haloo comprehensive report. So I'll skip this part. This is where we start to see the Claude reasoning layer come in. So you probably couldn't pick it up from the video, but some of this structure was actually coming in the video example of Claude trying to produce a search, a clearance search, but not having data to pull from it. So this is actually with a bit of a hybrid of Haloo's structure for a comprehensive report and all of the good things that Claude brings in. So again, one of the things that I wanted to really point out is that the risk assessment is enhanced in Claude. I actually find it really accurate. And so we've decided to integrate the Claude risk assessment. Additionally, Claude gives a really good overview of threshold registrability issues. So part of the Claude response answer has this table when you run a search. If you run a real search, it will give you really good responses in this table on registrability issues. Then it gives you USPTO citations. And in my opinion, the Clarivate report, as you noticed, was good. It was showing, fairly relevant things at the top, some canceled, some out of class. And then in group 2, it actually had some things that I think were a family of marks that should have all been in group 1. So I actually think the Claude reasoning layer combined with Haloo's analyze and rank reasoning layer, those 2 layers combined create better ranking of the USPTO citations. Additionally, here in the comments, this is the AI reasoning that comes in through the Claude integration. So this is not something that's inherent to Haloo. It's something that we're pulling in through this Claude clearance plugin. And I think it's really great. And like I said, when I did one example in particular, because I read the reasoning, I realized there was a mark I would have missed and that needed to actually be in the top 3. So I think that is a big improvement on legacy human search. Now, I won't click on these quite yet. I'll just run through the different sections, but you will see USPTO direct feed litigation quality full records for these hits. If you go through the hits, you'll see generally there's a lot of noise in the Clarivate report versus the vast majority of those hits in this Claude plus Haloo are much more relevant and they're ranked better. The additional thing that I mentioned is that there's this really interesting DuPont factor analysis that gives a lot of sort of explainability and then flags for things to notice from a legal standpoint. So it's another table that, again, we're pulling in through this Claude plugin. And now this is Haloo. So back to Haloo, we're pulling the actual real data. Claude will hallucinate this data. We never want that. We want actual time-stamped, up-to-date USPTO full record data for litigation. And then that sort of ends where we imagine the federal search part of a full search with Haloo and Claude. The idea is you will have a prompting layer, eventually be able to prompt directly in Claude. For now, it's a prompting layer that we're building in Haloo. It will take a few minutes to generate, but this is the report automatically done for you that you'll be able to either use out as it is to speed track a review. Eventually, if you keep your legacy systems, you'll be able to match them back to back and say, okay, I'm actually really trusting the Haloo Claude output. And in many cases, it's better than the human review. Sorry, not human review, but the human analyst search. And that you'll shift into this paradigm of AI native practice on full comprehensive search. We'll do another webinar just focused on common law, but the Claude plugin is really, really powerful for common law. But it needs a brain to back into, and Haloo has built the most advanced common law brain that exists in the market.
Any questions that weren't answered today, we have certainly taken note of, and we'll get back to you. If you're interested in speaking more or asking questions direct, you can absolutely always book time with our team to chat as well, as this is a conversation that is not going anywhere, that is only growing. So we thank you guys so much for joining us today to kick things off. And thanks to Julie and Nostron for walking us through that great content. Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody, and thanks again from Haloo. Our booking link was just put into the chat there, so feel free to grab some time with us to follow up with questions and understand exactly how you can start experimenting with these flows as well.